Aventus, Aventus, Aventus. I love it. All of it, down to the very last drop. And recently I've been getting a whole bunch of questions on things like, what's my favorite dupe of Aventus? Or what are some of the best Aventus-like fragrances that are out there? We're gonna try to answer all those questions in one single video. All right, so first, we need a quick disclaimer. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of Aventus-style fragrances out there. There's no way I could get my nose on all of them. So I know I'm gonna miss a whole lot. And if I don't talk about one that you really love, just let me know down below. Believe me, I'm more than happy to add it to the collection. First off, let's start with the obvious, the Aventus flankers. So you've got Cologne and you've got the Absolute Aventus. I love both of them. If you love the original, you're gonna like these two. This is the cleaner, fresher, more daily style. And the Absolute version is more the louder, more powerful, maybe like a going out or special occasion type of Aventus. So next, let's talk about the dupes or clones. You really can't talk about Aventus dupes or clones without talking about Armaf's Club de Nuit Intense Man. And for me, this is the fragrance that started it all. And this bottle right here is actually the first one that I ever purchased somewhere around like 7 or 8 years ago. Some of the letterings wore off, the chain is broken, this thing has seen some days. To be honest with you, it's not nearly as close as a lot of the more modern Aventus schmoops, but there's just something about it. I'll probably always have a bottle in my collection. Next up, we've got Kingsman from Fougère. Overall, it smells really well. Performance for me so far has been kind of weak. Now, I've heard from some other guys out there that theirs kind of did the same thing. They let it sit for a while and it got better, so I'm gonna hold on to it and I've got high hopes. But overall, not bad. And then we've got Pineapple Vintage. Now this is an interesting company. If you haven't heard of them, they are a company that's focused primarily on cloning Aventus. And there's no bones about it. They just straight up admit it on their website. Their perfumer loves Aventus and they make like 50 different versions. Compared to all these other clones and schmoops, these are pretty pricey, like $100 or well over that. The quality of these fragrances is pretty darn special. The one I have here is Emperor X-Straight, and overall, it's a really nice high quality take on this. Next up, we have two inspired by scents that overall are probably about the closest that I've smelled. This is Montaigne's Pineapple Intense, and this is inspired by scents Aventus Essence. There's no twists or turns to these. These are just trying to replicate the original, and for the most part, they do a really, really good job. All right, so there's my inspired by clones. Now let's move on to some absolute Aventus clones. Thanks to a buddy of mine, I recently got my nose on Fougère's Emperor, and I will tell you right now, this thing is not very close at all to this. Now, don't let that deter you. I think this thing smells absolutely amazing. But to me, it's really more of like a sweet pineapple heavy version of this and not so much a version of this. There are a handful of other Absolute clones out there and I've smelled almost all of them, and I know everybody has their own personal favorite. A lot of people are in love with the Afnan Supremacy Collector's Edition, and I do agree that's a very good version, especially at the price. But for me, that pineapple opening is just a little too harsh and screechy. For my nose, when it comes to Absolute, I go with Vanguard or A&Ash's Royal Noir Absolute. For our last section, we're going to talk about the fragrances that are kind of inspired by Aventus or have a little bit of that Aventus DNA in there, but aren't necessarily just straight trying to clone the fragrance. Now, when it comes to like an indie version, I don't know that it gets a whole lot better than Aventus from Polysniferous. Another really great indie version is Covenant Scents Relentless. And this is essentially their take on a hybrid between Aventus Cologne and Imagination. It definitely still has some of that Aventus DNA hidden down in there, but a very bright, crisp, kind of sharp opening to it. This is a fragrance that I literally never leave home without. For the budget side of things, one that I like a whole lot and I often recommend to others, especially because of the price point, it's Banana Republic's Midnight Hour. This is very, very closely related to Blockade by Mind Games. For $12.99 for a bottle this size, it's kind of hard to beat. It still smells fantastic. It just smells like a budget version of the originals. From the realm of designers, you got to go with something like Apollo 67. Now, this is the extreme version that has some leather and some heavier woods in it. There's also an EDT and an EDP, and overall, I think the EDP is probably the best version. For our last section, niche fragrances. From Frapon, we have Orchid Man. And this is essentially like a heavy oak moss version of the original Aventus. I happen to really, really like this fragrance because it sticks pretty close to the skin and doesn't project very loudly. What works really well is like a safe daily office style scent. Now, one of my more recent pickups, and that is Wilhelm Perfumery's Morning Chest. It has a little bit of leather in the dry down and a little bit of like a different woody feel to it. And then lastly, one of my overall favorite like niche twists on Aventus is Mind Games Blockade. It opens up with some nice bright fresh mango, but it's not too over the top sweet. The dry down for me is very, very smooth. I've heard a lot of people complain about the longevity, but personally, I've never really had an issue with this one. However, I'm a bit of a habitual oversprayer. So there it is, my Aventus collection. The originals, the schmoops, the dupes, the clones, the inspired bys, and then those that are just kind of borrowing from that Aventus DNA. Now you may be thinking, wait Doc, you still haven't really answered the question. What is your favorite dupe, or what is the best dupe of Aventus? For me, my nose and my dollar, all day long, I'm going with a Fougère Pour Homme. Just madly in love with this scent. This is basically a Fougere's take on the 10-year anniversary of Creed Aventus. So there it is, my whole Aventus collection, the smoops, the dupes, the clones, the inspired buys, all right here. Until next time, save money, smell better.